Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 138 of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. I hope everybody is staying safe out there. I feel like things are getting a little crazy with the virus. It seems like numbers are going up like crazy, and this time it feels a little different for me personally. The first round in the spring, I knew some people that got it, but this time a lot of my close people have it. I think I've gotten 5 or 6 calls just in the last 2 weeks of my friends saying they have this thing. And it freaks me out a little bit. So let's stay safe and keep one another safe. On a happier note, I am super excited that a lot of the fall TV shows are back. This is my favorite time of year, not only for the cold weather and holiday season, but also because I love television and I love all the new seasons starting. Like, a lot of things were delayed. I'm sure you guys have your favorite shows too. And I was watching the other night the first episode of my really most favorite show, and it just started back, a couple of weeks ago, and I just got to catch up on the first episode. And they said something that really stuck with me. The show is A Million Little Things, and it makes me a million times happy. It's just a friend group. It's friends and family and all this amazing stuff that I love. So I don't know if I missed it along the way in prior seasons, but I never knew where the name of the show came from. And in that episode, the first episode of the new season, they said it. And he said, friendship isn't one big thing. It's a million little things. And you know, I am a believer that everything is a million little things. Our recovery, our lives, our relationships, our personalities, all of it is the product of a million little things. Just like I always talk about the micro decisions, right? The million little decisions. It's something I stress a lot to clients, is to think of yourself as a 1,000-piece puzzle. And think about how small those pieces are, right? Some are bigger than others, but we're made up of a lot of pieces. And when I talk about my past and tell you that I wasn't very nice and I was selfish and manipulative, those are just a few of my pieces. I was also extremely kind and loving and generous. Those are a few more of my pieces. One of my pieces is entrepreneur, and one is alcoholic. I will tell you, my anger piece got much smaller when I got sober, and so did my judgmental piece. And with that, other pieces got much bigger. And I always think about this with dating too, because we have a tendency to rush into things. And this is where I've made some pretty big missteps in dating. When you start dating someone, everything feels so good and it's so much fun and you get along so well and you're so excited and all those chemical things are happening inside of you and you really can't think clearly, honestly. This is like the last moment to be making any major decisions, like in the first 3 or 4 months of dating somebody, because it takes a while, right? When you start dating someone, they are also a 1,000-piece puzzle. And how long do you think it's going to take to learn all those pieces? How long do you think it will take for them to learn your 1,000 pieces? And this helps me keep things in perspective and not move so fast, even when it feels magical. Because the truth is, learning all these pieces of yourself takes time, and learning someone else's pieces takes time. You aren't going to like all the pieces, and you've got to be in something for a while before you even start to see some of the more challenging pieces, right? Because we're all on our best behavior in the beginning of anything. When we start a new job, we make a new friend, we start dating someone, all of those things. When something is new, we are always on our best behavior. And when something is new, it's always the most exciting. So it takes a while for that newness to wear off and for reality to start to settle in. So take your damn time, okay? And the pieces we're going to talk about today are selfish and self-centered pieces. I'm sure we've heard this 1,000 times, people telling us how selfish we are. All you think about is yourself. All you care about is you. The problem is, when I was drinking and early in my recovery, I didn't really understand what that meant. And there's no question, in addiction, alcoholism, we are incredibly selfish. Everything we do is based on us, what we want, what we need. Part of it, on a certain level, is survival. Certainly for those of us that drank much more or drank daily, there is a level of survival mode in there, and almost anyone will do anything for survival. And lying, being selfish, manipulative, those are all pieces that we get really good at because we have to achieve what we want, right? And for me, especially as a person who is unmarried and has no kids, I don't really have anything else to think about but me and my dog. So I think I am kind of by default even probably a little more selfish because my whole world really does kind of revolve around me. And I think this is a big part of the reason too that dogs have always been good for me, because it forced me to think about something else, right? Everything wasn't just about me. And I think honestly, I've said this for 100 years, my dogs, I had Rottweilers in my drunken life, and then I got Henry after I lost my last Rottweiler, but my dogs saved me, truly saved my life in my drunkenness and in my sobriety, because it was the only thing outside of myself that I had to think about and create my life around, right? Because I have these little beings that fully depend on me, and I don't want to break their trust, and I don't ever want them to be uncomfortable. And they just bring so much joy and happiness that it made me a better person to have to care for them. And all of a sudden, my whole world didn't just revolve around me. But I had zero understanding of how selfish I was until my sponsor started to point things out to me. And I remember a couple of times feeling overwhelmed because on my own, I would have never been able to identify those behaviors as selfish. So when I was researching this topic for you guys, I found this little definition of selfish people in a Psychology Today blog, and it says, the two primary characteristics of selfishness are being concerned excessively or exclusively with oneself, having no regard for the needs or feelings of others. Let me give you an example. I think I've shared this story with you before. When I was about a year sober, I was going to a meeting at 5:30. I pulled in the parking lot and I saw the car of someone from my meeting who I knew very well. And this person was going through a painful divorce. And for weeks, all they talked about in the meetings was their divorce and how awful it is and how awful the spouse is and all of that. I was so tired of hearing about this divorce. I just couldn't stand it. So instead of parking my car, I decided that I would leave that meeting and I would just come back for the next one. Just as I'm pulling out of the parking lot, my sponsor calls me. And he says, "Hey, what you doing?" Stupidly, I said, "Well, I was going to go to the 5:30 meeting, but so-and-so is there, and I can't take another minute of hearing about this divorce. It's been weeks. That's all we hear about every single day. And I've never even been married. Like, I'm just done with it. So I'm going to take off. I'm going to come back for the 7 o'clock. Oh boy, if only I'd known what was coming. And he says, "Really? So you think all those people in that room just get together there every day just for you? You think that's what this is about? You? Everybody's supposed to show up and make sure they talk about what you want them to? I've never heard such self-centered, selfish BS thinking in my life. You get your ass in that meeting, you apologize to the whole group for your selfishness." And I paraphrased that, by the way. If he listens to this, he probably won't even remember, but he'll be cracking up. Anyway, I did. I went in and I apologized to my whole group. And he came up there to check and make sure that I did. Now, to you, this may sound extreme. And let me clarify, he wasn't being mean or shaming me or anything of the sort. He was calling me out on my own bullshit and holding me accountable to becoming the better person I wanted to be. That's part of the deal with a sponsor or a coach too. If you hire me as your coach, you are agreeing to being held accountable for what you're doing because you want to become a better person, right? I had agreed to that relationship. I made a commitment to do better and be better and to follow his guidance. That's why I had him, to teach me, to guide me to be better. And everything he said was absolutely true. All I was thinking about was me, what I wanted, how I was uncomfortable, how I wanted a different topic. All the people in those meetings every day aren't there to cater to me and make sure I'm comfortable and I have everything I want. I hear this a lot too when people talk about reasons they don't like meetings. It's all about them. We have to stop and think about the other people and recognize they have needs too. That person that was talking about their divorce, who, by the way, was a friend of mine, not just a stranger in the group, but someone I would consider a friend, and those meetings were the only place they had to talk about what was going on. Their divorce had put them in an uncomfortable position with their family, and they were losing their extended family, and their friends were the people in those meetings. That was their safe place, just like it's my safe place. We're all there to support and love one another, not judge each other and be dismissive because everything doesn't go my way. Selfish. I was excessively concerned with myself with no regard for the needs or feelings of others. One thing that it kind of cracks me up now too, when I look back on things like that, is that impulsivity or the inability to just sit and shut up. You know what I mean? Like, would it really kill me? Like, if there's one person in a meeting that shares something you don't like, they only share for a few minutes. I mean, it's not like you have to endure hours of something, a person sharing that you don't like. Was I so incapable of just sitting down and shutting up? Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. Not to mention how many other people in that room were probably getting a lot of value from all that conversation about relationships and divorce. Most other people in the world are married. They were probably getting a lot from those shares in talking about the challenges of relationships. But of course, selfish little me, all I could think about was me and how it affected me and how I wanted something different and it wasn't beneficial for me and it's all about me. At this stage of the game, I am happy to sit and listen to whatever crazy stuff anybody wants to talk about because I'm an emotionally mature human now, and I want to show love and respect and kindness by letting people be in their journey wherever they are. You don't have to be in your journey where I say you are. You have to be where you are. And it's my job as a person who loves you and supports you to be right there and be okay with it, right? That moment really stood out to me because I had zero understanding that what I was doing was being selfish. Another situation I always think about is when I would be with my family. First of all, I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and for many years, I never even went back to KC to visit. Mostly because I didn't want to leave my life in LA because I was so busy being cool. I was so cool. I thought I was so cool. But also because I was too drunk or hungover to make a plan and stick to it. Really, that's probably most of the truth right there. But when I did go back to visit, I would stay with my mom, who, of course, was dying to see me because we're very close and we're the only girls, me and my mom. Everybody else, the whole rest of the family's boys. And I basically used her home as a hotel. I didn't spend any quality time with them. I was hungover every day. I spent the absolute least amount of time possible with them and bailed as soon as I could to go meet all my drinking friends. And then I would show back up in the middle of the night, drunk, and pass out. That's pretty impressive. All because I didn't have the capacity to think about anyone but myself. I never thought about the fact that my mom missed me and would have appreciated some time with me. Or my little brothers, they were still pretty young. They're much younger than me. It never crossed my mind to hang out with them and connect with them. You know, these are little boys that I helped to raise from birth. Like, you know, I was a primary caretaker in their life for many years. And all of a sudden one day I just packed my stuff and left. And when I would come back, I never thought to connect with them and be with them. I never thought maybe they missed me. All I cared about was getting to the drinks. You see what I'm saying? It's the general inability to consider others in any way. And these are just a couple of things that stood out to me through the course of my recovery, and simple things that we all do without thinking about how much we are considering others or not considering others. But let's talk about a few more things that are significant in selfishness and self-centered. What I want you to do really is think about how you fit in here. I want you to look at your habits and see how you can improve. It's so funny. I do these episodes about, you know, our personality things and traits and whatever, habits. And I get all these emails and messages from people telling me like, oh my God, you talked about that thing and I could see that in my husband. And I'm like, no, that's not why we have these conversations. You can't control other people. So stop trying to diagnose them and figure out what their problems are and figure out what you think is wrong with them. Mind your own damn business. Focus on yourself. So think about these habits and traits within you, not within everybody around you. I want you to figure out your issues and see how you can improve, because you are the only one you have any control over. Go back and listen to the hula hoop episode and get a good reminder. All you need to worry about is what fits inside your hula hoop, and the only thing that fits in there is you. Or in my hula hoop, it's me and Henry because he's only 8 pounds, so he fits in there. Okay. Selfish people have a hard time listening. Remember when I talked about this in another episode? I talk about active listening a lot. Sometimes I forget if I talk about it on a podcast or in real life, but some people don't actually listen to what you're saying because they're really just waiting for their turn to speak. Are you guilty of this? This is what I want you to be thinking about. They can't hear you or understand you because they are focused on what they want to say and what they want you to hear. Okay, do you do this? I did do this for a long time. Again, I didn't even know I did this until I started learning about active listening. So I immediately got my act together and started practicing being different. This was a huge piece of my coaching practice when I very first started life coaching 150 years ago. This was something I got into, right? Active listening, because I want to care for my clients. If you are sitting in my office, at that time, obviously I saw clients in my office. If you were sitting in my office, that's part of showing someone value, that you value them, that their time is valuable, is you listen, you be with them in their conversation. So I studied active listening to make sure I was doing it well and being good at it. And I got much better, right? Of course I wasn't good at it because I had never heard of it, but so pay attention to what someone is saying to you. Hear their words and try to understand where they are coming from. If all you care about is your defense and you believe that what you have to say or the point you want to make is more important, then you have some work to do. Try to listen and really hear what your other person is saying, and don't worry so much about your defense or how you're going to defend yourself or if they're right or wrong. Just listen. People don't speak to give you the opportunity to judge them, right? So stop. Another major selfish behavior is being late. Selfish people do not respect other people's time. If you respect other people's time, then you make sure you show up on time, because that's being respectful. And I didn't connect this either. Showing up late shows that whatever you were doing that made you late was more important to you. Choosing to take a phone call when you're getting ready, or checking your Facebook one more time, or stopping for a coffee when you know you're already running late. Those are all self-serving and not honoring being on time. A big part of this growth for me too was my self-esteem. I couldn't respect anything or anyone else when I didn't respect myself. I was late to everything. I had a job for a while working day shifts, and I worked probably, like 4 days a week or something. I knew exactly what time I had to get up, exactly what time I had to leave my house to get there on time. And every single day, I got up late, hungover, I left the house late, and I stopped for a Diet Dr. Pepper every day for my hangover. Even knowing I was late, I still stopped. I didn't care. Because what I wanted and what I needed was more important to me than what my job needed or what my manager needed from me. It's so embarrassing now when I look back on this stuff. I was just so immature in every way. When I got sober and was going to AA every day, probably around the 1-year mark, I made a commitment to start being on time. Making a commitment means doing it no matter what, not just doing it until it's uncomfortable or inconvenient, right? I stopped at Starbucks every day on the way to my meeting and got a venti iced caramel macchiato. And there were a couple of times I had to skip the Starbucks stop because I got out of the house late. But I made a commitment to be on time. So if I didn't leave when I needed to, then I had to sacrifice my coffee. And I'll tell you what, it feels good to do the right thing. It feels good to be dependable. It feels good to care for yourself and have respect for others and show others respect. Also, I think about this too now that I'm a busy person. I think that was part of it also, is back then I just wasn't busy, right? Like I worked, I was drunk or hungover or whatever, or even after I got sober, I didn't do anything, I was very lazy, sedentary. I went to a meeting every day. I went to work when I had to, and that was kind of it. And I wasn't busy. So it never dawned on me, like if I was meeting somebody else for coffee or lunch or dinner or whatever, it never dawned on me that maybe they would be busy. Now I get it. Like, I promise you, if I make a meeting with somebody and I will sit maybe 5 minutes. If you haven't shown up, I'm out. Like, you're just late because you think I don't have anything better to do, because I promise you I have a lot to do. And that's where I started to really understand now the importance of being on time and respecting other people's time, right? Especially like a sponsor or something. Like, these are people that are taking time out of their lives, time away from their families and their work and their personal time to spend with you. Like, show the F up on time, have some respect. Another one, selfish people are very manipulative. Oh, we all know this is a huge part of addiction too. I found this quote from an emotional healing expert, Diane Oymet, and it stopped me in my tracks. She said, hang on, let me find it right here. Controllers, abusers, and manipulative people don't question themselves. They don't ask themselves if the problem is them. They always say the problem is someone else. And this touches on what I was talking about a few minutes ago when, people email me and they're, so consumed with diagnosing their partners and their friends and their problems, other people's problems. Like, are you really looking at yourself? I hear this a lot. He said this or she did that. I can't believe they treated me like that. Everything is someone else's fault. Never taking a moment to look at yourself and see your own responsibility in it. Analyze your own behavior and habits. When we're stuck in selfish mode too, it's almost impossible to take constructive criticism. And a few minutes ago, I talked about listening and how people get caught up in forming their response or their rebuttal so they don't actually listen. If someone says something about you that you don't like, you are definitely going to get stuck in defending yourself. Your whole thought process is going to shift to what you're going to say to them and what you're going to tell them and how you're going to tell them they're wrong. Again, not taking a moment to think about if there's anything accurate about what the person said. Instead, you get consumed in defending yourself and making your point because your point is the one that's most important to you. Never mind if your partner said something that is absolutely true and you know it's true. Your concern is more about what you want, making your point, making them hear you, and defending yourself. I used to do this and get in big fights because I was just throwing a temper tantrum and demanding to be heard. This is where conversations with our significant others can go so wrong because you forget to hear your person. You just want to be heard. You don't want to hear yourself. You want to be heard. It's so ridiculous, but that's how I was. Then I took it a different direction and I would get very dismissive. Like if a partner said something to me, even if it was true, I couldn't hear it because I'd be so focused on their issues. And I would tell myself that they were in no position to judge me. And I would just ignore it and brush off their concerns like I was better than them. And the truth of that is, I was picking bad people to be in relationships with, so I didn't respect their thoughts and opinions anyway. And that allowed me to be dismissive and just blow it off because in my mind, they were more effed up than me. So I could just ignore it. Thankfully, I have grown out of that in many ways. Firstly, I don't choose bad partners anymore, and I would never date someone I didn't respect. Secondly, I appreciate feedback because that's how I learn and improve. And thirdly, because I know I have issues and I'm okay with that. I can't be mad because someone else realizes I have issues. That's kind of silly. We're human. We have issues. So take a minute and think about if there is some truth in what someone is saying to you. And I understand sometimes people do not deliver constructive criticism well. I understand that. And sometimes when we are in unhealthy relationships, we use these things to hurt each other, right? Sometimes you are saying to your partner is saying to you something really crappy, and they're doing it in a crappy way because they want to hurt you, because we're stuck at being like 13 years old. But at some point, you have to start changing those behaviors. If you want things to be different, you have to do things differently. So maybe in your next argument with your partner, they say something to you, you're so selfish. Maybe you stop for a minute and go, you know what? You're right. I do have a tendency to be selfish, and I'm going to work on that. Instead of getting defensive, having some huge reaction with all the drama and fireworks and blowing things out of proportion, right? If you want things to be different, you have to start doing things differently. And that's what I've done in all these pieces that we've talked about, is like really being intentional. And we talked about being intentional means that I choose intentionally how I am going to act or respond, or what I'm going to do, how I'm going to spend my time, who I'm going to spend it with. I make those choices on purpose. That's being intentional. I know as a sober person today, I don't want to spend my time in bars. It's not fun. It's loud. It gets a little uncomfortable. If I do go meet some friends to watch a game or something, I'm only going to stay a little while. I have those boundaries, right? That's being intentional. I know where I'll go, where I won't go. I know how long I'll stay and exactly when I'm going to leave. I make those decisions before I ever walk in. That's being intentional. So choose how you're going to handle this selfishness. Make some choices, make some commitments to how you're going to be different and do things differently and handle things differently. All right, let's do a quick recap before I close this episode out for you guys. Have a hard time listening, being late. I want you to really think about this. Being late, this is a big one. And I think we really blow it off. I know I did for sure. Like, I never thought about being late as being disrespectful. And I'm glad to see it that way now and understand it in that light, because it makes it very important to me now to be on time and be respectful. And being manipulative. Make sure that you question yourself. And this is one of my favorite things I learned in working the steps, right? Is really recognizing my responsibility in my choices in my life. Regardless, even in dating, if somebody wronged me, I have responsibility in that. Not that I can control their choices or what they did, but I chose that person. And there were probably red flags along the way that I chose to ignore. I know that with 100% certainty because I've done all this work and looked at all those situations. Every bad relationship I've ever been in, I had ample opportunities to leave. And I didn't because I was unhealthy and codependent and all of those things. But that's my responsibility. It's my responsibility if somebody says to me, would you please listen to me? Because I'm distracted and not listening, or I'm defending myself and not listening. I have to look at my responsibility. So take some time and look at your responsibility in your situations instead of blaming other people. Okay, how's that sound? Now, last thing I'm going to say, I hope you love this episode, of course. And last thing I'm going to say is the Powerless and Powerful Guided Recovery Journal is out. It is officially listed on the website. If you go to myrecoverytoolbox.com, click on store from the main menu, and it is right there. It's ready to purchase. So many of you have already gotten it, and I'm super excited, especially with holiday season. It's going to be so good. And I'm going to add some additional resources. So when you get yours, I'm going to add some things on the webpage to help you, like give you ideas on how to fill out the prompts and things to think about and all of that good stuff. Okay. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Go out and conquer the world and start conquering your selfishness and self-centeredness, and let me know how that goes. All right. I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.